من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيب قلوب العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. أما بعد، قال الله في محكم كتابه الكريم: ومنهم من يقول ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. In the year 1902, Julian Carlos Helu moved from the Middle East to Mexico at a time where his country was demolished in the middle of civil wars between the Christians and the Druze. 60 villages were burnt down. Alaykum assalam. 30 villages were burnt down. 60 people lost their lives between the clashes between the Christians and the Druze. Many Lebanese left their country, Lebanon, and moved to countries like Ivory Coast, Mexico, Brazil. Carlos Slim Helu, Julian Slim Haddad moved at an early age, the age of 10, to Mexico, where he started to work as a simple worker. But years and days passed by. Before 1911, he bought the first printing press in Mexico for the Arabs who resided in Mexico. And through this business, by printing newspapers and magazines for the Arabs, before 1911, he had become a millionaire. At a very early age, before his 20s, him and his brother established a company named the Star of the East. By the year 1911, by 1921, his name had changed from Julian Haddad Helu, and the people of Mexico would call him Don Julian. He became a Don. He became someone very important and very powerful and worth $28 million at the time. 70 years prior to that, America bought half of America. States like California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming for $20 million. So you can imagine how rich and wealthy this immigrant became within several years. An immigrant like every single one of the attendants today. None of us were born here, especially the elders. Now it is our children who are citizens or being born in this country. But every single one of you and us, brothers and sisters, was an immigrant from the Middle East. And we also have the opportunity to become the most powerful individuals, the most wealthiest individuals in our countries, in our societies, and in our communities. But it is how much we strive to become what we desire, to become wealthy, to become powerful. He also, Don Julian, also raised his children on the same footsteps. So he raised his children from the age of 3 or 4. He gave them a pen and a paper, and he would give them daily allowance, and he would tell them to write how much he gave them and how much he spent. The child spent, and his children started to learn accounting, how much allowance he's getting daily and how much he is spending weekly or monthly or annually. And then he encouraged them to save up their money to buy stocks, and he taught them how to buy stocks from the stock market before they even reach the age of 10. Now it might not be possible for a person to own stocks at such an early age, but you can definitely teach your children about the stock market and how the market works and how the economy works and how businesses work. So at his encouragement to his children, of course, that paid off, and his son is the second wealthiest man on the planet today, net worth of $80 billion. $80 billion. January 28th, 1940, Carlos Helou was born, the son of Don Julio, the son of a Lebanese immigrant, which is now today worth $80 billion by buying all the telecommunication companies in Mexico and South America. He's worth $80 billion and the most powerful man in Mexico and in South America. If Islam wants Muslims to be on a magazine, if Islam wants people to be famous and powerful, Islam wants our young generation, our brothers and sisters to be on magazines like Forbes, to be of the 100 wealthiest men on the planet. There is no problem with that. Islam does not advocate for you to live a life of a monk. Islam does not advocate for you to live a life of simplicity or weakness. Islam does want strong individuals. Islam does want wealthy individuals. Islam wants hard-working individuals. So if Islam wants you to be on a magazine, it does want you to be on Forbes, it wants you to be of the list of the top 100 wealthiest men and most powerful men on the planet. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قام الإسلام على اثنين سيف علي ومال خديجة. If it was not for the wealth of Khadija عليها أفضل الصلاة والسلام, the mother of the believers, Islam would not be where it is today. Rasulullah, it is said that as simple as one of her trades used to be 1,000 camel loads from Damascus to Mecca. 1,000 camel loads of gold and silver. This is not a small, imagine having, a business with a fleet of 1,000 18-wheelers moving daily. It's great wealth. Having all these assets coming from this state to this state, from this city to this city. 1,000 18-wheelers is not a small business. And imagine if it was a company sending and shipping all these products. But she gave everything that she owned to Islam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alih was not a wealthy man, but he was still an entrepreneur. He had a business mind. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alih he started to work as an entrepreneur at a very early age with his uncle Abu Talib alayhi salam. And he would go with his uncle Abu Talib, and the hadith say that everything that he would purchase, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would place the barakah through the wisdom of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and he would gain 10 times in return. So Khadija alayhi salam saw that this young man, he's a smart individual. He's a smart individual. He's, thriving his uncle's business. His uncle is old now, so I should take advantage. He's trustworthy. He's ameen. No one has witnessed that he's taken a penny from them. That's one of the greatest traits a person could carry. Also, he's a very successful entrepreneur. So she gave everything to Islam. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله نعم العون على التقوى الغنى. The best aid you can have for your piety and for your iman is not poverty, is ghina, wealth. This is a misunderstanding that we have, that only those who are poor, they can become righteous individuals, they can become pious individuals. That only the poor, the needy, because he's always, no, this is not true. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi says, نعم العون على تقوى الله الغنى. The best of aid that you can have from being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being pious, is wealth. Because through wealth you can achieve a lot. Through wealth you can serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many ways. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله نعم العون على الآخرة الدنيا. The best way for you to succeed in having a great akhirah is having a great dunya, owning businesses, having a lot of assets, having wealth. And by spending it, by pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The misconception that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants Muslims to be poor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to only wear one shirt throughout the whole year. Because we sometimes hear this from speakers, that this is the way the Imams used to live. That this is the way Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi used to live. The Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdal salati was salam, this is how he used to live. And the famous story with Qambar alayhi salam, that Amir al-Mu'mineen only had one shirt, or he bought one expensive shirt and one cheaper shirt, and he gave the more expensive shirt to Qambar because he was a young man. Or that he tells, we'll mention tomorrow, he tells his daughter Zainab, when she places 3 types of food in front of Amir al-Mu'mineen, being salt, yogurt and bread, he tells her, when have you seen your father eat more than one type of food? And he chose salt and bread, and he told her to take away the yogurt. So there's a misconception that our Imams were poor individuals, so we have to live as poor individuals. And becoming wealthy can distract us from the akhirah. It could destroy our dunya and corrupt us. Is this true, brothers and sisters? Were our Imams poor individuals? Were they needy? Or did they choose to live a humbling life? There's a big difference. You could be a wealthy person. If you see Steve Jobs, before he passed away, he was never a person who was wearing expensive brands. You see him, he's in a normal t-shirt, a normal pair of jeans, and normal sneakers. But he was a billionaire. Sometimes you see individuals, they're very rich, but they don't dress lavishly. They don't have to, buy the most expensive of brands and have high expenses. But he can give back to his community billions and billions of dollars. He gives back to charities billions and billions of dollars. A person like Warren Buffett could give $2.1 billion to charities. Bill Gates could give billions of dollars to charities. And if it was not for having something in your hand, then you cannot be or please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdal salatu was salam, at the day that the man entered the masjid asking the Muslims for help, if he did not own a ring at the time, then he could not have given it to this needy man as a sign of charity, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not have mentioned his act in the Holy Quran. إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيَأْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. If Amir al-Mu'mineen was like the other Muslims who chose not to give what they had, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not accepted his act or mentioned him in the Holy Quran. And Amir al-Mu'mineen would not have been remembered by millions and millions and millions of believers from 1400 years ago till the day of judgment. Or if Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salati wassalam did not have food to give the needy, the orphan, the captive, and the needy, as we recite in the Holy Quran, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have not mentioned them. But when they did, after fasting 3 consecutive days and giving what they owned, their own food, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions them. إِنَّمَا نُطْعَمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شَكُورًا. It was because they had something to give. If you don't have something to give, then, there's no praise for you. If you're not working hard, if you're not making yourself to a point that you can give your community, you could give your brothers and sisters in need, you're not in a position of praise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not be praising you. When you're at the level of Warren Buffett, you could give $2.1 billion to charities. How many houses could that build? In Iraq today, when there is 5 million orphans and widows, how much could $2.1 billion do? Last year we built a school, a high school for girls, orphan girls, middle school and high school for orphan girls for $3 million. Imagine how many schools you could build with that money. How many hospitals you could build with that money, how many homes you could build with that money, and how many people will be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you, to protect you from the fires of Jahannam. How many people will be praying for you? And this is why some historians say that Fir'aun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delayed his punishment so many years because he used to give the needy of his people. He used to slaughter thousands of cows every day and feed the needy. So when this hungry man ate his food and raised his hand and said, "Oh Allah, protect him," Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, accepting these poor individuals' dua, delayed his punishment for so many years. Even in this dunya. But imagine what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give a believer when he gives to his community. He gives to his brother in need. He gives his brother that is struggling to pay off his loan. He gives his brother who is struggling to open a business and earn bread for his family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us to do such acts. And عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام إن أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام أعتق 1000 مملوك من كد يديه. The Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was not a poor individual, brothers and sisters. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that he freed 1,000 slaves with his own money. With his own money. And slaves are not cheap. A slave could be 300 golden dinars, 500 golden dinars, some slaves thousands of golden dinars. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam freed 1,000 slaves with his own wealth, with what he worked for day and night. He would work, instead of spending it on himself. He's an imam. He's the leading example for those who are rich and for those who are poor. So he has to live such a humbling life. But doesn't mean he was a poor man. He wasn't working. He wasn't owning businesses. He wasn't. Amir al-Mu'mineen owned 11 wells. That's like, owning 11 bottling companies. You know, today it's become a $1 million business, where he owned like businesses like vitamin water. People became millionaires off of such businesses. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam used to own 11 wells where people would drink from, or people would, you know, give water to their farms, and Amir al-Mu'mineen would take money from them and then free slaves. He would give it to the people. He would give it to the needy of his people. So if he chose to live a humble life, it doesn't mean that our Imams were poor. Imam al-Hasan alayhi afdal salati was salam, a man comes to him. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam does not, you know, put him on the spotlight. What do you want? What do you need? Imam al-Hasan gives him a stick and tells him, write down how much you need, the number of how much you need on the ground, on the dirt, and I will give it to you. The man writes 10,000. The Imam goes into his house and comes back with 10,000 golden dinars. Right now, a golden coin is sold at, you know, almost $1,300, $1,700, 1,700 American dollars, 1,400, 500 American dollars. So imagine what Imam al-Hasan alayhi afdal salatu wassalam gave this man. He gave him $15,000 right off the bat, just because he was in need. He's a person who's in need. He came and asked me. I have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me. I give my brothers and sisters. You know, we don't have to live a life of a miser, someone who's greedy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He gives you wealth, He gives you money, by the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, that we mentioned, the best of aid and support for you on the day of judgment is wealth. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you, then give back. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is the best aid you can have on the day of judgment. One of the neighbors of Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam was Nasibi. He was a hater of Ahlul Bayt. One day Musa ibn Ja'far is walking through his vineyard. His neighbor starts to yell and scream at him that you killed my crop. And he starts to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib, the father of Musa ibn Ja'far, and all of the Imams. The Imam does not respond. Alaykum as-salam. But he goes to him and he tells him, how much do you usually sell your crop? Or how much do you think you will sell your crop this year? And he starts yelling his neighbor. He says, I don't have ilm al-ghayb. I can't see the force. You know, I'm not a fortune teller. He tells him, well, every year, how much do you usually sell? He says 1,000 golden dinars. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far goes into his house, comes back with 2,000 golden dinars. He tells him, this is this year's crop, and this is for you to have enough for next year's crop. This person immediately falls in love with the Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, and he becomes a follower of Ahlul Bayt. If Imam Musa ibn Ja'far did not have the money to uphold such an act, then this person would have stayed as a Nasibi and a person who hates Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam. Historians say that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and Fatima, for 3 consecutive years after owning the land of Fadak, every single thing that came from the land of Fadak, every single penny that came from the land of Fadak, they gave it to the poor of the Muslims. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. Islam wants every single one of us to become businessmen, brothers and sisters. Even if you're a doctor, even if you're a surgeon. There's 2 types of work. There's work that you have done with your brains. You have studied hard enough. You have become a doctor. You have become an engineer. You have become an architect. But Islam still wants you to become a businessman. And work to make more money. You might be making enough money as a doctor. You might be making 15, 20 grand a month. But Islam says, you know what Islam says? The hadith by Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, "Tis'atu a'shar al-rizq fi tijara." 9/10 of your sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you is in tijara, is in commerce. So even if you're making $20,000, $30,000 as a physician, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you much more than that if you start investing in businesses. The $30,000 is only 10% of what subhanahu wa ta'ala can actually give you if you start working into a business or investing into a business. Even to go to school, earn a degree, that's no problem. But still, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to work, to write down your expenses, to go buy your business, to strive your business, to work for your business. And this is what we saw in the life of the leader of this ummah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. As soon as he became the leader, the Muslim peninsula started to thrive. Its economy started to boom. And the whole Middle East became the most powerful region in the world because of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Islam wants you to work, to see pain, so you could gain from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala His sustenance. He doesn't want to give you your sustenance for free. He wants you to work for it. And Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, al-kaddu fi iyalih kal-mujahid fi sabilillah. The person who goes, the man who goes and works for his family. As simple as being a taxi. Working at night, working for your family. As simple as, even a shoe shiner. But if you're going out, working as hard as you can, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this person is just like a mujahid standing in the battlefield, taking arrows, taking wounds. And this is how his wife and children should respect him. When your father goes to work and he comes back, welcome him as if he has come back from a battlefield, as if he has just been in the middle of swords and spears. As a wife, respect your husband for how much he is trying to do for you and how much he is trying to earn for the house and for the family. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Islam wants you to work hard. A prophet like Prophet Dawood alayhi salam cried for 40 nights to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach him an occupation for him to earn an income from. And after 40 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the du'as of Dawood, and He made him into the blacksmith that was known to make the best of armors and the best of swords of his time. He would take metal and iron and he would weld it with his own hands as if it was clay. الَّذِي لَيَّنَ الْحَدِيدَ لِدَاوُود. He made it very squishy for Dawood. He could do whatever he wanted and weld the way he wanted. So sometimes, brothers and sisters, also it is good to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show you the way, how to make money. Oh Allah, show me how to make a business, please. Sit on your sajada, sit on your prayer mat. Oh Allah, show me a way I can start my own business. Show me a way how I can become a wealthy man. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if you're a doctor, physician, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, show me another way So maybe through this business, I could give everything back from this business to the community. I could build us a masjid. I could build the youth a gymnasium. I could build an Islamic school for my community. And every single child who goes to the school, I will get the thawab. إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ انْقَطَعَ عَنِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا عَنْ ثَلَاثٍ. If the son of Adam dies, he's disconnected from this world totally, except by three. Waladun salih, a good son, a believing son or child. Aw sadaqatun jariyah, a sadaqah, a charity that stays for a very long time. Brothers and sisters, those who made the center and effort to open this masjid and center, every time one of us enters in this masjid, every time a verse is mentioned of the Quran in this masjid, every time a dua is read in this masjid, he gets absolutely the same ajr and thawab of those who recite, of those who mention of Ahlul Bayt. However much we are getting thawab now and deeds and benevolent acts written in our books, those who established this place, even if they are not here, it's being written for them. You open a school, you educate a child. For every single child, you will have thawab until he grows old and he passes away and he leaves this world. Because what? You educated him. You're the person who planted a seed in him since he was a child until he grew. So having sadaqatun jariyah or ilmun yantafi' bihi an-nas. Through wealth, you can have a sadaqah that's everlasting. Build a hospital, build a school. Imam al-Sadiq in another hadith says, إِنِّي أَحِبْ أَنْ يَتَأَذَّى الرَّجُلُ بِحَرِّ الشَّمْسِ فِي طَلَبِ الْمَعِيشَةِ. I like to see the man sweat and the heat of the sun, trying to earn income, trying to earn bread for his family. This is Imam al-Sadiq. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says, Allah, I myself like to see a servant working hard day and night, and the sun. Don't be lazy. Don't just say, I'm going to have this desk job and that's it. I can't take working in the sun. I can't handle working in the cold. No, this is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advocates us Muslims. وروي أبو بصير قال سمعت أبا عبد الله عليه السلام يقول إني لأعمل في بعض ضياعي حتى أعرق. Imam al-Sadiq, your Imam, who through him the Ja'fari school of thought was founded. Through him every single school of thought, the Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, they were all his students. But Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam himself, he says, I have vineyards and I go myself and work in the vineyards until I start sweating and I am tired. وَأَنَّ لِي مَنْ يَكْفِينِي لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ إِنِّي أَطْلُبُ الرِّزْقَ الْحَلَالِ. Even though I have my people who come and give me, even though I have enough for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, but I want Allah to see that I am going through hardship to seek halal sustenance. I want Allah to see that I am sweating, I am going through hardship to seek halal sustenance. I'm not being a lazy guy and waiting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send me my mortgage. I'm not being a lazy guy for Allah until I wait to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me, my day's end. Our Imams advocate us to work. A family of 6 brothers come to Imam al-Sadiq. Their 6th brother is a monk. All he does is pray and fast. Pray and fast. He doesn't go work. He doesn't do anything. He has kids and his brothers have to pay for him. Until his brothers became, upset and tired, they came to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and they told him of his situation. They told Imam al-Sadiq, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want such individuals that are just praying and fasting the whole time? They're lazy, or they've become monks and priests, abids. Imam al-Sadiq says, Wallah lilladhi yaqutuhu ashaddu ibadatin min. Wallah, he swears by his Lord that the person who is giving him his daily bread is more of a worshipper in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one that his brothers that are going and working and helping him survive and his family survive are greater worshippers than him. So tell him to leave this act and to start working like every single individual. So this is what Islam says about working for this dunya. About this dunya, Islam wants successful individuals. And now, is there a commerce, a way of business with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our akhirah? Can we earn wealth for our akhirah as well? Or is that only the way of life in this dunya? Or is it how everything works for this dunya and the akhirah? The answer is in the Holy Quran. The Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu hal adullukum ala tijaratin tanjikum min adhabin alim. O the believers, should I direct you towards a business that it will save you from the punishment of Jahannam, from a devastating punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? تؤمنون بالله ورسوله وتجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالكم وأنفسكم ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. Very easy. And inshallah we'll conclude rapidly. تؤمنون بالله, you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet. وتجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالكم. Again, if you want to be wealthy in the day of judgment, be wealthy in this world. تجاهدون بأموالكم. Giving from your wealth. Jihad isn't always giving with a sword or a weapon. It could be giving with your wealth. تجاهدون بأموالكم وأنفسكم, and your nafs. Come to the masjid and participate. ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. So brothers and sisters, having belief and giving back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of ways. يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ويدخلكم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ومساكن طيبة في جنات عدن ذلك الفوز العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you paradise. He will give you a beautiful life. But it doesn't come easy, brothers and sisters. An average millionaire today works about 59 to 60 hours a week. So if you're not working 59 to 60 hours a week on your business or what you think it will make you a millionaire, you're never going to be a millionaire. You're just going to be the average Joe. And same thing when it comes to Islam. You have to invest. And what is our investment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the akhirah? It is our prayers. If we are not praying, we are poor, brothers and sisters. A person comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He tells, Ya Rasulullah, for 2 years I've been dying of poverty. The first thing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi asks him, do you pray? Do you pray? He says, yes, I pray. Does your wife pray? He says, yes, my wife prays. Do your children pray? Yes, my children pray. Brothers and sisters, if there is a house where there is people not praying in that house, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not send them their sustenance and what they deserve. He will make it in a way just for you to survive. Just for you to survive. But if you start praying, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the doors of His sustenance and shower you with His mercy. You will start having good credit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, you don't pay your bills here in this country, in this world. When it comes to your credit cards, you could only spend $500 on your credit card. What are you going to do with $500? But if you start raising paying your bills, then credit card companies see that you're an honest person. Here's a credit card worth $10,000. Here's a credit card with $50,000. And they give you the opportunity to spend more. Same thing when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa asks Jibreel alayhi salam that why is his sustenance become so low? Jibreel comes down to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa he tells him that about 2 years ago, a person who did not pray passed through the vineyard or through the farms of this man. And he had a loose tooth, so he ripped off the tooth and he threw it in this man's farm. And because of that person's tooth, that person who does not pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still in that person's farm. The angels who bring sustenance are no longer coming near this person. So tell him to go get rid of that tooth, and then the angels of sustenance will reappear in this person's life. Brothers and sisters, the best way to invest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially our younger brothers and sisters, the younger generation, when sometimes it's hard, we don't understand the importance of prayers. But that's all it takes. Sometimes to become rich, you have to have sleepless nights. How many of us don't want to sleep at night? How many of us, want to go through hardship? Sometimes it's over 60 hours of work a week. Some people are putting in 20 hours a day of work. But if we're not putting as simple as 5 times of daily prayers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll also be poor individuals in this life and in the hereafter. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.